Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Robert Shapiro.
I am Theresa.
And this is the Intuitive Health Portal podcast. And this is another exciting episode that we're coming to you today with. We've decided to step more into the realm of a topic that we discussed before, the fear of failure. And we're going to get into more of a specific subset of that. We're going to talk about the fear of losing your job due to vaccination mandates. It's a very hot topic right now.
Yes.
Yeah. So more specifically, the COVID mandates. This is what we're dealing with currently here in 2021, moving into 2022. It's a very politicized topic. A lot of people are very emotional about it. They're very polarized. I've never experienced this kind of polarization. I don't think in my entire life. I mean, I've seen polarization on different things, but not with something that hits so close to people's fundamental rights of liberty, for, the right of choice. And it's pretty clear that efforts are being made to step into those rights and maybe not necessarily take them away, although maybe they are, but definitely they are bending things as much as they possibly can. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little nervous about speaking about this today. And it's mainly because I'm very involved in politics in regards to my profession. And so I do want to disclose that what I say today does not represent my entire profession. It doesn't represent my association in any way. It is my opinion. It's my knowledge. It's my experiences, her experiences. We're going to come at you today, and we think you'll get a lot from it, though. So, importantly, let's talk about how this is going to affect you in regards to your work situation. Perhaps you have been told that you have to vaccinate for your job. Perhaps you are fine with that. Perhaps you're not. Perhaps you're afraid that you're going to lose your job. How are you going to deal with the situation? It's a hugely important topic. It's something that everybody in one way or another is going to they're being faced with. Even as employers, we're being faced with these certain requirements or mandates, even though, and luckily for us, at least in California, as a chiropractic facility, we have not been really grouped into that mandate quite yet. But it's probably only a matter of time before they try to tread into our territory. Interestingly, though, as you probably are aware of, the OSHA backtracked on their requirement for mandating employers with 100 employees and above. So that is going to set precedents. We're going to see where that goes. It's obvious that the federal government is still pushing the issue. Definitely here in California, the governor is pushing the issue. Most of the people in my profession are very adamantly opposed to the COVID vaccine. It's a combination of reasons. It's distrust. They don't believe that they work. They believe that it just encroaches on your basic human rights. And quite honestly, I agree with that for the most part. I don't necessarily see eye to eye with everybody on this. An example is I don't really buy into the conspiracy theories myself. An example would be the whole, like, they're putting nanoparticles in the vaccine. I believe that's complete horse caca. Like when they said, oh, people were doing the magnet thing online, I even tried it. I was like, you know what? I'll entertain it. Possibly. I'll give it a shot. And it just plunk fell right off my arm. Obviously that means I got the vaccine. I did choose to get the vaccine. I got the Moderna mRNA vaccine. I was very scared to do it at first. I had multiple reasons why I did it. One, I saw a lot of my patients get it and they didn't die. They didn't grow a second head. They didn't grow new appendages. They didn't turn into the Toxic Avenger. Really nothing major happened to them. They didn't start having recurring infections or anything like that. They seemed like they got through it fairly unscathed. So another reason I did it is January 2020, when we moved our office, I got terribly sick and I got a horrible respiratory infection, unlike anything I've had in a very long time, save for the flu. I had a really bad case of the flu, I think back in like 2016 or 17. Really took me down for a few days. This thing kicked my butt. Mm-hmm. I ended up going to urgent care. I had to get seen by a medical physician. I got put on antibiotics, prednisone, and an antibiotic for my eyes because I just had this infection that had spread to everything. I had bronchitis. I had severe sinus infection, and it was in my ears. It got in my eyes. They were swollen. I was miserable. And the week that I was dealing with it, and I was taking holistic stuff, like I have a tonic that I use for I sell it to my patients all the time in the wintertime. We call it a cold flu tonic. It has a lot of osha root in it, echinacea, golden seal, horehound root, and elecampane, and among some other things, in kind of a special blend. It's pretty effective. I was using that. I was using like a standard process Conjuplex. I was using, I believe it was Astragalus. Just pretty much throwing everything I could at it, and it was just getting worse. And I ended up waking up and feeling like I was getting pneumonia. So that's the reason I went to urgent care. I'm glad I did. It definitely helped me recover. But the point of that is that I just did not want to ever have to go through that again. And the other reason I did the vaccine is that I knew they were going to challenge our ability to travel. I knew they were going to mess with it. And I didn't want to be restricted on that. Now, unfortunately, that does kind of come across as, oh, you sold out, like you gave in. And maybe that's the case. I've asked myself that, you know. I have a friend, a very good friend and patient, who is a pharmacist at Kaiser, and he is on administrative leave right now because he refuses to vaccinate. So take that into consideration. That's really interesting because everybody expected the crazy chiropractors to be the ones to stand up against this thing. But we've gotten beat up so much politically standing up against various vaccines that we finally got smart and we realized, you know what? Other people need to step up and they need to enforce their own rights. We got to stop being the frontline people. We're getting smashed here. Mm-hmm. And all we're doing is we're proving the politicians their point when they say, oh, chiropractors are weirdos. So you know what? You need to step up and you need to enforce your own rights. That's what we did. And it's been really surprising the people that have come out of the woodworks, because I never would have imagined a pharmacist stepping forward and saying, I'm not taking this vaccine. And he's shared a lot of information with me. I'm not going to share his name, of course, because I don't want him to get any backlash. But one of the things that really took me off guard is he was, you know, they're giving out various vaccines at Kaiser. They give out the Pfizer, the Moderna, the Johnson & Johnson Jensen vaccine. He sent me a picture of the Jensen insert, which is a little booklet that all medications have that show you the chemistry inside of it. They explain they give you research. They give you, possible side effects, precautions, adverse reactions, possible life-threatening allergic reactions. All the inserts were blank except for the name of the vaccine. They had none of that information in them. And that was really odd. And it was every one of them that he was opening up and seeing this stuff. Okay. So very odd to see something like that. Like, what's going on? Are you trying to hide something? Yeah. All right. You know, kind of red flag number one for me. Red flag number two was I started having people that I personally know having more serious reactions to the vaccines. All right. I had one patient, his feet swelled up severely. There's probably worse reactions to have than that, but he already has neurological damage from a previous injury. So, okay, you know, perhaps that pre-existing condition predisposes him, but then why would a vaccine trigger more nerve damage? Okay. Because you have to ask yourself, okay, let's say the adverse reactions are 1 in 100,000. All right. So basically you're playing Russian roulette, right? You spin the gun. There's one bullet inside that gun. There's 6 chambers. Are you really willing to be the one to to pull the trigger and to take the chance that that bullet is in that chamber and it's going to blow your brains out and now you're finished? Because that's kind of the way it is with vaccines, and it's not intentional. I don't believe it's intentional. I think it's an unfortunate, it's a what do they call that? Unintended consequence.
Yes.
I think it's an unintended consequence. I think they're really trying to make people immune to these things. They are triggering an immune response for sure. And they're trying to allow your body to develop antibodies to protect itself. What I don't think that they're doing that they should be is they're not looking at people's their bio-individuality, right? Your individual biochemistry, your genetics especially.
Yes.
And that, I'm telling you right now, plays a huge role in how people react to these things. Anything that triggers your immune system, if you have certain genetic mutations or flaws or traits, you will have a tendency to have adverse reactions. And because the reason being is that anytime you take a vaccine, you're triggering an immune response. It's an insult to your immune system. All right. Now, yes, if you get the illness, it's also insulting your immune system. And that is a risk too, because I do have friends that have gotten COVID and they are permanently damaged.
Yes.
Like our friend Brian, he's got permanent fibrosis in his lungs. He's really messed up. He has to travel to Mexico to be able to get himself off of medications, asthma medications that he has to take now because of the damage he sustained from his COVID infection. And he's a very strong believer in the vaccine, and I can understand that. Another colleague of mine, Dr. Mossoff in Bakersfield, he's an expert on coronavirus, on vaccines. He actually did his undergrad, University of Michigan, on coronavirus vaccines. And he goes around and he talks to medical groups and explains the differences between the vaccines. He told me he took the vaccine, but it was only after he got COVID and he sustained some damage from COVID. And so then he took the vaccine. So I think it's pretty clear that he believes in it. At the same time, though, I have challenged him with various questions, and we've had conversations. Some of it I really can't discuss, again, because of political reasons, but I think it's interesting the fact that he can't discuss it over the phone, but he'll talk to me in person about it when there's nobody listening, I guess. That kind of, that makes you wonder, okay, what is really going on? Like there's just more than meets the eye. Right. And so, I guess, looking at your decision, should I vaccinate? Should I not? What are we doing as an employer ourselves? We're not requiring our employees to vaccinate. Now, our new employee, she's vaccinated. She decided to do it. She actually just got her booster. She had a really bad reaction to it, but she got through it. What was it, like really bad fever, body aches?
Something like that. Yeah. She said the first day right after she got it, she goes, I swear I felt I was going to die, but she goes, it passed and I'm fine. Yeah.
Yeah. On the other hand, I know of other people who have done the boosters and they're in the hospital now. One of them is really sick, and she may end up sustaining heart damage from it. Okay. And if you go out and you look in the news, that's not an unknown thing. Like, that's being talked about a lot. As a matter of fact, just the other day, some of the pages that the government is releasing on the Pfizer vaccine, it's discussing heart damage. And get this, all right? Get this. Twitter flagged a link to the American Heart Association's website, this link to an article that says that they are warning that I believe it was Pfizer or Moderna's vaccine can cause heart inflammation. All right. And Twitter flags it as unsafe. It's the effing American Heart Association. All right. Yeah. It's not the Chiropractic Association or Naturopaths Association or Reiki Practitioners Association. It's the American Heart Association, and stinking Twitter is flagging it as as fake news. That's what they're doing. I mean, are you freaking kidding me? So again, more and more stuff is coming out, and I I was very doubtful of the people that were really talking smack about the vaccine, not because I believe hardcore in them, but because I vaccinated and I didn't have this horrible, terrible reaction. I didn't grow a second head. I can still think pretty clearly, you know, and yet more and more evidence is coming out that there's just, there is, what I want to say is I want to say the F word, but I'm not going to say it. There's shenanigans. There are shenanigans that are going on here. Okay. At the end of the day, you have to do your research. You want to trust your sources, but there's so many people are so politicized by this.
Yeah.
And they're being so emotional. It's really hard to trust the sources. I mean, I don't even trust some of my own friends because they're just way too passionate about it. And when a person gets passionate about something, while it can be good, when you're trying to gather evidence and be objective, I don't personally feel that passion is a great thing because it can feel very slanted. It's more of an opinion than a fact. I like to try to find as much evidence as I can. I'm a very evidential-based person. I go to PubMed. There's plenty of stuff on there that talks on the pros and the cons of it, right? One thing I wanted to mention that, you know, my colleague brought up to me, I'm really interested in this technology that they're working on. It's called, virus-like nanoparticle. And what it is, it's just what it says. It's a nanoparticle that they can shape to mimic a viral protein and trigger an immune response. And the promise of it is that it will actually trigger a more amplified antibody production, but a way diminished immune reaction. So the chances of having an adverse reaction to one of these is very minuscule. It's very promising stuff. Now, I've asked him why they're not, you know, going at this heavier. And kind of the gist I've gotten is it's really just money, you know? And I think that's what this all boils down to. Anytime there's people attacking each other and slandering each other, follow the money. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of money going out there paying for these vaccines. Isn't it interesting that they're pushing boosters in the U.S. when most of the world hasn't even been vaccinated yet?
Yeah.
Have you asked yourself that? Why are we worrying about boosters here when people in other countries aren't even vaccinated and they don't have access to the vaccines? Mm-hmm. And largely it's because money. They can't afford it. Somebody's paying for those vaccines here. Your free vaccine isn't free. It's getting paid for. Right. And they're getting paid handsomely for it. And they're also getting paid very handsomely for those tests, those stupid rapid antigen and PCR tests that everybody's having to do now because if you don't vaccinate, now you got to test every week. Mm-hmm. All right. Somebody's making money there. So, you know, follow the money. That's my point to that.
Yeah, going back to the career thing and the job, that is a huge question that we are saying, should I stay or do I go? Do I leave this job because, you know, of maybe for those that are not vaccinating, it's mainly I'm not putting my health in the hands of somebody else. And then really just trying to, you know, weigh their options.
Yeah. And I mean, you have to, obviously, I mean, it sounds cliche to say you have to make that decision yourself. You do have to weigh the pros and the cons, right? So, here's something to think about. If you take the vaccine and you don't have any severe reactions, okay, you're fine. You got through it. You get to keep your job. And that's happening with a number of people. They're doing the vaccine. They're keeping their jobs, right? If you end up being one of the unfortunate ones that does have a reaction to the vaccine, is, you know, let's say that it's so debilitating that it puts you out of your career. That happened to an airline pilot. He took the vaccine. You can go search it. I don't remember if it's American Airline or United or Southwest, but the pilot got the vaccine. It caused him irreparable damage, I think, to his optic nerve. He cannot fly anymore. His career is done. All right. So here's a highly specialized, trained, very skilled, experienced individual. He's been in his career, knows his stuff, probably flown hundreds, if not thousands of flights. Mm-hmm. And he's a 6-figure income earner. Done. Now, at best, he's on disability. His life is never going to be the same. Are you willing to take that chance? Even if it is 1 in 100,000, mm-hmm. you know, if it's that low, Are you willing to take that chance? How are you going to feel if you end up permanently injured? And guess what? Your employer is not liable for it, which I don't agree with that. If the employer is going to mandate you to take a vaccine, then you should be liable for my injuries. All right. But I'm going to play devil's advocate. It also sucks as an employer that if your employees don't vaccinate, that they think that you're going to pay for their COVID tests. I think your employees should pay for their own COVID tests or go somewhere and get it paid for. Insurance covers it. Great for them, but as an employer, why should you have to front the cost that your employees don't make the choice to get the vaccine? I mean, it sucks. It's a catch-22, and as an employer, I don't feel that I should have to front the cost to test you twice a week because, the government's made this mandate. So, I get it. I mean, you're going to have to pay for your own tests. All right. But on the flip side, I'm not going to force you to get the vaccine, because I don't want that on my conscience. And, and again, I do believe employers should be liable for the injury. I do. It's going to make some people upset, but oh well, get over it.
Well, even with the reactions, the things we've seen, there's still, who do I go after for this? Because for, whatever made them decide to, get vaccinated, then suddenly they have the reaction and it's like, oh, sorry, you ended up, becoming one of the few, right?
The unfortunate few.
Exactly.
Well, there is a database, VAR, something adverse effects reaction database, something like VARS, VAERS, I think it is, that you can, when you report it to your physician, they're supposed to put in that database. Now, that relies on your physician admitting it. Hey, this probably came from your vaccine, which a lot of them won't.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. If they won't do it, then you're going to have to find a physician that will back up your statement, that will step in and say, hey, I can verify that they sustain these symptoms and these injuries are from this vaccine. And that can be very difficult too. It's not as simple as, hey, you say it and it's so. It doesn't work that way in our world, especially in the med legal world when you're trying to sue somebody or, get compensation for injuries. Believe me, I know because I deal with it in automobile accidents. It can be like pulling teeth to get an auto insurance to pay for your injuries when it's clear cut that their driver was drunk and broadsided your car and there's videotape and they will still sit there and deny or try to claim that you're partially at fault or you were in the way. Like, really? I mean, they do that kind of BS. So, I mean, if they're that unscrupulous with an auto accident, they're even worse with vaccines, and that's what I'm going to say about that. So, but yeah, no, the job thing, I mean, it's sensitive. I mean, my friend, the pharmacist, right now he is planning, he may sell his house here and he may move to Florida because his brother lives there and his brother has already hooked him up with transferring his license. I mean, he's literally, if Kaiser does not bring him back without forcing him to either do a religious exemption, a medical exemption, or get the vaccine, he says he's going to go to Florida. Like, he's done.
Yeah, because they pretty much had said, well, you're going to take this exception, right? And he goes, no. And his reason is because it doesn't fall within his values, his beliefs. He's like, no, that's not me. I'm not going to lie.
You're not going to lie and take a religious exemption because he's not religious.
Yeah.
He says it doesn't hold to my values. Like, I would be lying. That'd just be one more lie, right? I'm just selling out in that way. I'm willing to lie to save my job. And it's really interesting. He really made me think. I mean, it honestly made me think like, well, geez, did I sell out when I got the vaccine myself? Was that me selling out? Because there are colleagues in my profession that I know for a fact kind of think that I sold out but you know what? My good friends, they had the integrity to ask me, why'd you do it?
Yes.
And I told them and they said, so you don't really believe that, it made you completely immune? And I said, not necessarily. I haven't tested for the antibodies, but I mean, the virus is mutating. I mean, look, we're on the Omicron version now, right? Like, how many freaking versions are we going to get?
Yeah.
Way more than we're ever going to be able to anticipate. I personally think that has a lot to do with, I personally think the virus is man-made, but that's my opinion. There's evidence out there. You can go down that rabbit hole if you want.
Regardless of how it started.
Right.
It's here.
It's here, and it's adapting. And that's what they do. This is the thing you got to understand, folks. Viruses are even if they're tweaked, that virus was here long before we were. It will be here long after us. I do think philosophically it is a way for the earth to kind of call the herd, because
shedding of its skin.
Yeah. Maybe that doesn't sit well with some of you, but I do think it's calling the herd a little bit. I mean, you look at various species when they are sick and debilitated, they're frail, they die. There's things that happen that kill them off. Mm-hmm. And it's because they become a drain on resources. And I know, maybe you're like, you're talking about,
that's inhumane,
right? That's my grandma. That's my aunt. That's my dad. That's my brother, right?
We understand.
We understand the emotional attachment. I get it. But the fact of the matter is none of us are going to be here forever. None of us. And none of us can determine when or how, right? I mean, we have a choice over that to some extent, I guess, certain methods, right? We jumped out of a plane and we could have died there, right? But we don't have sovereign control over how long we're going to exist. And this virus is just another example of how the earth can throw a stone and, cause some damage. It's not an asteroid. It's a virus.
Which
right?
we keep hearing about.
What you keep hearing about, right? Mean, there's so many things that can happen. Natural disasters. Look at the flooding. Look at the heat waves, right?
Yeah.
So if a virus doesn't wipe you out, it could be a fire like we were having in California, right? Mm-hmm. Devastate your house, burn you up. You could drown. You can, look at the violence. Look at the amount of violence that's going because we're defunding the police, So, I mean, this is just one of many things that can take us out. And I really personally feel like they're overblowing it. I mean, it's killing 0.3% of the population. Now, I've said this in the beginning. I've said this many times. I'm going to say it again. If it were like Ebola and people were running around bleeding from their eyes and dying on my sidewalk and there were corpses all over the place, I'd probably consider a little bit more do we need to vaccinate? Do we need to mandate something like that? It's not happening. Again, 0.3% of the population. It's way too politicized. There's no zombies running around. So, we're going to survive. We're going to get past this. We're going to thrive whether you vaccinate or not. So don't feel as though you need to, but also if you feel that's your choice, do it. But don't go out and virtue signal and say, oh, beat everybody over the head. I vaccinated. You got to do it too. It's your duty. That's horse crap. It is not their duty. Get off your high horse. All right. Don't virtue signal. All right. You want to vaccinate? Do it. Keep it to yourself. Right. Or you can share it with people, but don't beat them over the head with your opinion, because that's exactly what it is. It's your opinion. You're not a scientist. You're not doing the research. You're not in the lab. I mean, I'm not even in the lab, but as a doctor, I can get a hold of these people. I can talk to them. And even I don't have all the answers, but I'm not going to beat anybody over the head with my choice. So.
Yeah. One of the things that conversations I've had with many people that's not being said is upregulate your immune system.
Yeah. So how do you upregulate your immune system? And that's not being talked about. Well, here's some simple ways to do it. Number one, get your vitamin D levels checked, because it is a fact. You can look it up in PubMed, the connections of the vitamin D with immune status and integrity. All right. So, normal lab values of vitamin D say anywhere from 30 to 100. In functional holistic medicine, we shoot for between about 50 to 80. So preferably in the middle. It's like 60, 70 should be your lab values, right? How do you do that? Well, you take vitamin D. You can get some sun. Maybe it does it. Maybe it doesn't. Easier way to do it. Take vitamin D, D3. All right. I recommend generally about 5,000 IUs a day. But it's also why I recommend you get your blood levels tested and monitor it that way. If you don't do that, you're basically thrown in a dark room, knowing there's a dartboard somewhere on the wall, right? And you're going to probably hit it, but you don't know that you're hitting the target. Get your lab values checked. If your doctor won't do it, go online and do it yourself. Like we have links to places that you can go and pay for your own blood tests on our site. You can go to Rupa Health. You can go to, I think it's like Medical Co-op or Professional Co-op. All you have to do is
us. We have the information.
Yeah. Reach out to us, and we'll give you the information on how to access it. Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
So
trying to think of all the names.
I know, right? Yeah. Vitamin D. You can take astragalus. It's an immune boosting herb. You can take
essential oils.
Essential oil.
Yeah.
Andrographis. Mm-hmm. Andrographis is a great immune boosting herb. For virus, zinc. I want to say about 50 milligrams a day of zinc. Zinc is an inhibitor of viral replication. And incidentally, that's how ivermectin and hydrochloroquine work. What they do is they take zinc and they drive it into the cell, and then the zinc interferes with the replicase enzyme. So that interferes with the virus's ability to build itself. Pretty much kind of how that's the gist of how those medications work.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of going back to, kind of the thing that started this conversation is when I say boost your immune system, it is going to keep you healthy. It could possibly keep you in your job, in your career, able to work.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but really it's just allow yourself to become informed, really do a lot of your own research, weigh every option best for you.
Definitely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I hope that we've given you some things to, think about and, if you want more information, have questions, always, it's like, feel free to, reach out to us. Definitely like and subscribe.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Click on the click subscribe.
Mm-hmm.
Feel free to, like she said, reach out to us. Our information is within the description. And, you can find us at, www.intuitivehealthportal.com. You can find us at www.shapchiro.com, and you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And we're working on
and YouTube, of course.
Yeah, YouTube, of course. Yeah. And we're working on our TikTok and all that stuff. So anyways.
Yes.
Yeah. We're just trying to make it easy, facilitate your guys' ability to get access to us. So thank you so much for listening to this. And we are looking forward to bringing you much more great content.